So this is the new Porsche Macan Turbo, but there are no turbos, and that is because this is the all-new, all-electric Macan Turbo. So let's go and have a look, see what it's like. This is, as always with these videos, my first time driving this car. So you get a real-world insight into what it's really like straight off the bat. Straight off the bat, there is an interesting electric noise. It sounds pretty much like the Taycan noise, actually. There is, straight in front of me, an augmented reality head-up display, but it feels quite weird. It's enormous and really bright. You can change the brightness, I would assume, but it's kind of distracting because it seems to be linked to your steering angle. So if I turn, the head-up turns as well. Weird. Anyway, so what is underneath this new Macan Turbo? Because obviously there are no turbos because it's an electric car. So what you get is a 100 kilowatt hour battery, which is, it's big. That's a big battery, 100 kilowatt hours for any electric car. 100 kilowatts is a sizable battery. And what that gives you is, on paper at least, a decent range of around 360 miles, which is, let's be honest, if it can achieve that, is very, very impressive for an electric car. However, I would imagine it's probably closer to 300, which is still good. It's still completely usable because, let's be honest, how many times do you do a 300-mile journey without stopping at the services or stopping overnight or stopping, you're having a break of some sort? Also, being the turbo model, as the name might suggest, is that there is plenty of performance on tap. This car has, unbelievably, for a small family SUV, 640 horsepower. That's absolutely absurd power figures. 800 and something odd foot-pounds of torque as well, which again is just bonkers. All of that means that this car will do, in its most aggressive settings, and there are different settings, but in its most aggressive settings, this car will do 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3.3 seconds. That is, since we're in a Porsche, 911 territory. So we've done our bit of fast B-road driving, and it coped extremely well. Now we're in a little quaint little village, and if anything, it's coping even better, because this is where electric cars really shine. They're quiet, they're refined, they're comfortable, they don't bother anyone when you're going past them. Some ladies sat there having a cup of tea in a cafe, but they haven't been bothered by my engine noise or my smelly diesel exhaust because I've just wafted past them in silence. Well, not exactly silence, because there is an electronic noise, which you may have just heard then. You can turn that off though. Personally, I quite like it. It makes me feel like I'm in Tron from the 1980s, a place where I am comfortable. Now, the head-up display has just got a little bit weirder because I will try and film it, but normally you can't see head-up displays on camera very well, but I will try. But it's almost like, obviously you can see the road in front of you, but arrows come in from the side and go, come this way. It's really quite bizarre. I'm not sure that I like it. I do like a head-up display, but this one just, I don't know, it's a bit weird. What do you think of the electric noise? Hopefully you can hear it. It is a specable option, by the way. It's about 350 quid. Would you bother speccing it? Or would you just think, well, I've got an electric car. Electric cars are silent, so that's how I'm going to drive it. I personally quite like it, but I know it's not for everyone. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. It has to be said, this car so far is very comfortable. The turbo has air suspension as standard. You can spec air suspension on the lesser models, the 4 and the 4S, but turbo as standard, and it does ride very well. It is comfortable, it soaks up bumps. You still feel very much connected to the road in the way that you expect to feel connected to the road when you are driving a Porsche. It's no 911, but it does weigh 2.5 tons. So that's kind of to be expected. But for a 2.5 ton car, it rides very well. So this car is based on the PPE platform, which was jointly developed with Audi. So I suspect that underneath this car is pretty similar to the new Audi Q6, kind of small to mid-sized SUV thing, which is, you know, no bad thing. Audi and Porsche have teamed up in the past, and now they are teaming up on this. So although the battery is very big in this car, 100 kilowatts, which allows you to have such a long range, a theoretical range, it does charge very fast. It will charge at 270 kilowatts. So that fills up the battery pretty fast indeed. In fact, if you can find a fast enough charger, this will do a 10 to 80% charge in just 21 minutes. Now, when you think about it, if you stop at motorway services, I guarantee you are longer there than you think. You might be thinking, oh no, I don't want to have to stop and wait to charge my electric car. But this is a family car, don't forget. If you've got the family with you and you're popping into the services, there's no popping about it. You're going in, you're all having a toilet break. You might be grabbing a coffee. The kids might want a snack. You might want a snack. You might want a cheeky little McDonald's. All of that, by the time you've left the car to coming back in the car, is taking you more than 21 minutes. And if you think it isn't, I challenge you to do it faster. So inside the cabin, really nice. This one has been optioned with the passenger display screen, which I think you can't quite see, but I'll get a cutaway of it, allowing the passenger to look at their own screen, and I believe they can actually watch Netflix on it as well, which is quite nice and something that Tesla drivers will have got used to being able to do in their cars. The fit and finish, materials used, as always with a Porsche product, superb. I honestly don't think anyone puts a car together better than Porsche do in terms of just the quality of the materials used, and the fit and finish is just brilliant. It's got nice new ambient lighting along here, along the top of the dash. You've got different themes as well. You may be able to see my dials. I've got a kind of blue theme, and you don't have to, but you can match the theme of the dials and the screens to the theme colour of your ambient lighting. So at the moment it's blue. Also, you may have noticed, the eagle-eyed among you have noticed there is a new Porsche badge in turbo grey, which is the new kind of signifier for the turbo models. Have all got this grey on the badge, on the front and the back side, round the window surround, are all got this new colour. It's actually really nice, a monochrome kind of Porsche badge. I like it. So we should probably talk about this car's main rival, and I believe anyway that this car's main rival, potentially, as weird as it sounds, is the Tesla Model Y Performance. Why? Excuse the pun. Well, because they're about the same size. They are both fully electric, fast, small SUVs for the family. Who knew that was such a niche? But it kind of is these days. That's sort of what everyone is looking for. handily, I've been driving the Tesla Model Y Performance for the last 2 years, so I can compare it to this car very well. Now, the performance on tap is very, very similar. They both do it 0 to 60 sprint in around 3.5 seconds. They both do around 300 miles of range. The Tesla perhaps has a slight edge on the technology side of it, purely because of the supercharger network. It's so good, it can work out how far you need to be from a supercharger, where you should charge, the most efficient way of doing it. Do you stop there for half an hour? Do you stop there for 5 minutes and then at the next place for 40 minutes? It will work out a journey for you brilliantly. It will preheat the batteries as you arrive at the supercharger, which allows you to get the full force of the charging speed available. This car, although it is coming up on the nav where these nearest chargers are, I just don't feel as though it is quite as sorted as the Tesla system. However, where the Porsche does excel and is noticeably better than the Tesla is the build quality and just the feel of the cabin. It feels like a much more premium product. It feels like a much more expensive product. And well, it is, because this car that I'm driving right now is £100,000. And that's an awful lot of money. The Tesla Model Y Performance, for context, brand new, is around 60, and there are used models out there for 40. But comparing a Tesla to a Porsche is a bit like comparing a Ford to a Ferrari. You are paying for a brand, you are paying for a premium product, you are paying to feel special because you have bought that brand that makes you feel good. You know, is a Gucci t-shirt any different, honestly, to a t-shirt from H&M? Is it? The quality? Not really. But it's the brand you're paying for. I've got to be honest, the infotainment is a little bit confusing, even for me, that gets in and out of lots of different cars. But it's snappy enough, pretty quick. Got your themes here, your charging stuff here. I've got 153 miles of range from 60%. Now, it doesn't take Sir Stephen Hawking, was he a sir? Stephen Hawking to tell you that if that was 100%, it wouldn't be giving me 367 miles of range. So take the range quote with all electric cars, in fact all cars, with a pinch of salt, because let's be honest, it's not just electric stuff. If you buy a, what's rubbish, a diesel Peugeot, the miles per gallon figure is going to be completely different to what you actually get. So let's not, get too excitable about the claimed range figures on cars. Okay, de-restricted bit of road. Let's flick it into Sport Plus, shall we? Let's see what the acceleration is like. Let's slow down from 40 miles an hour and... whoa! Yes! It's really fast. Yeah, it is really quick, this car. Unsurprisingly with that amount of power, but yeah, that's quick. No complaints on the performance side of things. In fact, it might have too much performance. This might be a good time to speak about the fact that this car not only does have comfort mode, sports mode and sports plus mode, but it also has an off-road mode called off-road, and let's use it now because we're kind of on a bumpy, unmade road, single track road. Why has the car suddenly become a pogo stick? What's going on? Okay, so off-road mode raises the suspension and turns it into a bouncy castle for some reason. It's really bouncy. What on earth is going on here? Back into normal mode. Blimey. So, I wanted to make a point about electric cars in general, but I suppose this is a good car to make the point in because of the amount of performance that is on tap here. Because, let's face it, the traditional buyer of a Porsche Macan, or for that matter, the traditional buyer for a small family SUV, is not traditionally a petrol head, if you like. They're not someone that is used to driving very fast cars. Now, all of a sudden, we've got to a point with electric cars that they're all ludicrously fast. They will all do 0 to 60 as fast as a Ferrari. Now, if I put my mum, for example, in this car and asked her to put her foot down, she'd be scared witless. Because normal people, or non-petrol head people, aren't used to driving cars with 640 horsepower. So why did we need 640 horsepower in an electric car these days? I know they're heavy. It can't be just to balance out the weight. Now I know there are less powerful variants of this car. The 4 and the 4S, for example, have at least 100 horsepower less than this. And if you were a mum, for example, or not remotely interested in being a fast driver, then you would just probably opt for one of those. But the fact is, the turbo model, yes, it's the quick one, but it also kind of comes with all the spec that you want on it pretty much as standard. So you don't have to then spend thousands of pounds on top of the base price speccing it to how you would want it to be. Something that I've noticed, which is bugging me somewhat, is I know all cars have got this now, that feature where if you stray 1 or 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, it bings and bongs at you. Fine, whatever, it is what it is. And I know you can turn it off through a sequence of buttons or even using a hot key to do it. But the traffic, what's it called? The speed limit recognition on this car is not very good, because you could be driving down the dual carriageway or the motorway and it picks up the speed. So it's doing it now. Did you hear that? It's telling me off for doing more than 50 miles an hour, but I'm on the dual carriageway. The speed limit is more. Like, it doesn't read this. It doesn't read the correct speed sign. So you're on the dual carriageway and it will read the speed sign for the exit ramp. So it will say 30 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, when in reality it's 70. So it bings and bongs and tells you you're going too fast, which is really distracting. It just doesn't work. It's 2 days later and I've been living with this car as I would if it was mine. I have done the nursery run, I've taken the dog to the dog sitter, I've done the work commute twice, and obviously got it back here and did the motorway stuff and the dual carriageway stuff and the country lane stuff and the village stuff. So I feel like I've probably got a nice position to be able to kind of explain what it's like to live with this car. First of all, I guess we'll do the negatives. The negatives are, it's a family car and it doesn't have that much room in it. Usually electric cars are packaged in a way which allows loads more room because they don't have a great big engine up the front to kind of take up all the space. But for some reason, this car doesn't have that big of a boot. I put the buggy in there, and to show you, you can have a look at that now. So I put the buggy in there and it kind of took up half the boot, maybe a little bit more than half the boot. There is a flap to kind of lift up the boot floor, but because this car has got the Burmeister sound system, it's full of subwoofers and amps, which, you know, it's fine because the sound system is really good in this, actually, to be honest. I am a stickler for a sound system, but this is a good system, the Burmeister one. However, the downside of that is that it takes up quite valuable boot space. If you had 2 children, you would probably struggle to fit everything you need, you know, if they're young and you've got to have buggies and trikes and all that kind of thing, then you would probably struggle with this boot space. Of course, you also have a small boot or a fruit or a frunk, depending on where you are in the world, in the bonnet, where you can fit not a lot, maybe a backpack. You can certainly fit your charging cables in there and a backpack, I would say, that kind of size. It's actually smaller than the boot in the front of a Porsche 911. Inside, the cabin space is fine. There's plenty of room in the back. With the car seat in there, still plenty of room to swivel it around without having the passenger's legs to be crushed for being too far forward to do that. So that's good. Interestingly, I did a PCP quote on this because you say, oh, it's 100 grand. No one's buying a car with the 100 grand. No one's walking into a dealership and saying, I'll transfer you 100 grand, bosh, give me the keys. That doesn't happen. No one's doing that. So everyone's financing it. I will tell you the finance quote in just a moment. I've got 2 quotes, one for a 2-year PCP and one for a 4-year PCP. And the results may surprise you. Let's talk about performance, because on the drive down on a motorway and the dual carriageway stuff and even the kind of faster B-road stuff, I was a little bit not disappointed, because it drives great. It does drive great. For what most people need it for, it drives great. However, it drives great in the way that nearly all high-performance electric cars drive great. You know, you could have been in anything with this amount of power and this amount of torque, and it would feel the same to drive. But after a little spirited driving in and around kind of towns and, you know, quiet roads, it does start to feel, when you are nailing it, it does start to feel like it does have some Porsche DNA, which is a good thing, because I was starting to feel like it was a bit of a blunt instrument, you know, but there is some Porsche characteristics in there. But you have to really drive it to find them. The other thing about the performance is that it's got so much power. I don't know what the torque split is, or the power split between the front and the rear axles, but it does feel, when you're on it, it feels slightly rear bias. I don't know if it is, but it feels like that. And that might be also because it's got the rear wheel steering on this car, which is an option, a cost option, at quite a large cost as well, option, a couple of £1,000 at least. And it feels like, because the rear wheels move the opposite direction to the front wheels, if you boot it out of a corner, it feels like it starts to kick into a drift, which it feels nice. Like, as someone that likes to drive fast cars, I like that characteristic. It feels fun to drive, actually, which a lot of electric cars don't feel fun to drive, but this one it has got that fun factor to it. However, I went into, on my way to work this morning, nice quiet road, I went into a mini roundabout. It is January. I've got a picture of a snowflake on my dashboard, which obviously means it's cold. It's damp, it's drizzling, I have very cold tyres, and I went into a mini roundabout, not quickly, and I could feel it was understeering, so I gave it a bit of throttle to kind of straighten it out, and all of a sudden, before you know it, I had at least a quarter turn opposite lock because the car had just come straight round, which again, I don't mind and I quite like it, and if I owned it, I would probably provoke that quite a lot because it does make it fun to drive. But how many people that buy a Porsche Macan want to drive it like that? Most people probably want to just drive it to school. And if that happens on your way to school and you've got kids in the back and maybe a dog in the boot, it might be a bit unsettling, especially if you're not used to driving cars that do that sort of thing. Something that really bothered me about this car, and I tried to film it, but it's very hard to film, is the way it skips around corners at low speeds. Very, very low speeds. I'm talking full lock, you're doing a turn in the road type thing, or you're pulling off your driveway and you're having to go full lock, 1 to 2 miles an hour. It just goes boom, 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 around the corner. And that's not unique to this car in any stretch. A lot of Mercedes do it, particularly AMG Mercedes, and I really don't like it. It's an uncomfortable feeling. It sounds awful. People turn in the road and look and go, what's broken about that car? Because it's just, it's not nice at all. I don't know if it's suspension setup. I don't know if it's because the tyres are cold. I don't know if it's because the sidewalls on these tyres are particularly stiff. Some cars do it, some cars don't. This one does, and it does it really badly. So you remember earlier on in the video when I said this car can charge at 250 kilowatts? Well, it can. This is the reality of it though. I've just pulled in to try and find a fast charger to plug into, and it's only 50 kilowatts. That's going to take an ice age. In fact, it's going to take 2 hours or so. So you end up then going, oh, all right, where's another one? Where else can I go and charge up faster? There's some chargers over there. Oh, there's some there. Those ones are over. There's a Burger King here, right? They're 7 kilowatts. You could eat, oh God, how many Burger Kings could you eat in the time it would take to fill the car up? 7 kilowatts. I reckon you could eat the entire stock of burgers that they've got in there in the time it would take to fill that up on the 7 kilowatt charger. Probably 24 hours. Close to. Oh, there's another one there. What's that? Instavolt. What are you saying? Yeah, there's a loads here. Costa, 7 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts, 7 kilowatts, 7. And there's also a petrol Fiesta and a diesel van parked in them. So that's useful, isn't it? They would be furious. Imagine how furious a white van driver would be if I parked this at a petrol pump and then just went in the shop. He'd be livid. He'd be posting it all over his Facebook account. Can you believe this man parked an electric car at a petrol pump? What a mental thing to do. Well, you're doing the same thing, pal. Okay, I'm at a charger, plugged in. I'm currently getting 119 kilowatts of power. Let's see what it warms up to. Anyway, so this will give me time to tell you what the finance quotes were that I got. Now, this is a £100,000 car, and I got 2 quotes. One on a 4-year PCP, which I would strongly recommend that you buy any electric car on a PCP, because if the value falls through the floor, you can just hand the car back at the end of your term. You just have to keep it for your term, hand it back. It is then the problem of the finance company. They can deal with it. Otherwise, you could potentially be so much in negative equity that you end yourself up in real trouble. So please get a PCP if you're buying an electric car. Or if you're doing business lease, whatever, that's different. But yeah, PCP if you're going to buy it. So on a 4-year PCP, this was the cheapest one that I could find. However, there may be different ones out there with different balloons and this stuff like that. But this is the first one that I found with the cheapest monthly payment. The car £100,000. The deposit, 5,000. You probably put more in, to be honest, but 5 grand. If you're buying a 100 grand car, you've probably got 5 grand in your bank that you can just go, bosh, there you go, and forget about it. It's then going to cost you for 4 years £1,717, which is not an insignificant amount of money, is it, per month to drive this car? In fact, I'd probably say it's quite a lot. The finance company then, after 4 years, is giving a guaranteed future value of £44,414. So, like I say, if your car is worth less than that in 4 years' time, it doesn't matter. That's the problem for them to sort out. Just give them the keys. See you later. If you bought the car not on a PCP, you will have to pay the shortfall to be able to get out of the car. So that's a lot. The other option you could do is a 2-year PCP. You could do 3 years as well. You could do a 2-year PCP, which is obviously going to cost you more money. However, it's obviously going to cost you more money per month doing a 2-year PCP, but you've only got the car for 2 years, so if you don't like it or you fancy a change-up, then you've got that flexibility to just go, oh, I'll only have it 2 years and it's fine, I'll give it back. The interesting thing with that is that the finance company are only giving a 50 grand balloon on it, or guaranteed future value, which means that they think that in 2 years this car is going to half in value, which is a frightening thing. I don't think it will. I think the finance companies right now have been burnt badly by electric cars, and so now they are being super conservative on what they think it's going to be worth in 2 years' time, 4 years' time. The interesting thing is that the two-year valuation on it and the 4-year valuation of it is only about 7 grand difference. So they think it's going to drop half of its value in 2 years, but then only lose 7 grand over the next 2 years, which seems a bit weird. But they're obviously doing it for a reason, and it's to protect themselves. The downside of doing it for 2 years is going to cost you 2.5 grand a month to pay to have the car. We're in a weird world right now, a weird place in the car market. Everything's really expensive. Finance rates are really expensive. Guaranteed future values are really low. Finance companies are making things very difficult. But if you have a business and you can put the car through the business and you can write off a large proportion of the price of the car, then it makes sense. It still makes sense to buy an electric car if you own a business. If it doesn't, if you don't have a business, I'm not sure it's worth buying an electric car right now. And I'm saying that as someone that has one and has enjoyed having one and loves the very cheap running costs of having one. But it just doesn't make sense unless you can claim a loss of money back, because the finance is just bonkers. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Maybe this is a conversation for another day. Maybe this is a conversation for a podcast. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. So I'm off to drive another Porsche now, another Porsche SUV, and this one is not fully electric. This one has a great big thumping V8 engine in it. So let's go and see what that is all about. I'll see you in the next video.